Chances are you've already heard of Ninja Gaiden in some way. After all, the series has been around for a long time. The first game came out on the NES way back in '88, and interestingly enough, it was, according to XPlay, the very first console game to feature cinematic cutscenes. After the first game received high praise for its many impressive feats and became famous for its high difficulty, they continued on with the series with the second and third release, also for the NES. After that, the series stayed quiet for a while, up until 2004 when Ninja Gaiden for the original Xbox was released, followed by the two improved versions Ninja Gaiden Black and Ninja Gaiden Sigma in 2005 and 7 respectively. Fun fact, Ninja Gaiden was also Team Ninja's first try at an action game. I personally think the series reached its peak with the release of Ninja Gaiden Black, and I consider it to be the best version of the three. The game starts out with a narrated cinematic that introduces us to the story and the game's protagonist, Ryu Hayabusa, the most badass motherfucker you've ever seen. He's got no mercy. During a tough trial up in the mountain fortress, Ryu's village is attacked by a dark samurai known as Doku, one of 3 greater fiends. Doku kills the shrine maiden Kureha and proceeds to steal the dark dragon blade. But before he can escape, Ryu arrives in the village and goes to face him, but gets absolutely obliterated by the dark dragon blade's evil power. Ryu seemingly dies, but miraculously gets brought back from the dead, and now he's out for revenge. He decides to start his search in the ancient capital of the Holy Vigor Empire, Tyrone, a city of history combined with modern technology. And that's the gist of the story. This tells you everything you need to know about the game. It's a game with all-time flipping ninjas mixed together with modern-time cities, and all of this is drenched in thick atmosphere, supernatural phenomenon and mystery. Mixing in magic and supernatural beings into the game shouldn't work, but thanks to an extensive lore and great world building, it does. What makes it so intriguing is the mysticality and exploration, which is comparable to the Zelda games. It's an adventure in which you explore your world and find treasures and secrets as you progress, while fighting off monsters and overcoming challenges that test your limits. Now add in some puzzles and we're set. That's also one of the reasons I like Black over Sigma, since they tone down the complexity of the puzzles in the Sigma version. One thing you'll notice immediately when you start up the game is how beautiful the game looks despite its age. Everything runs smoothly and the game even has cinematics, which is simply stunning. The level design is inspired from a variety of locations and eras. You have the Japanese ninja fortress and village, the mixed architectural locales of Tyrone, such as the European buildings and the Gothic monastery of Dvorku, and there are underground levels that feature statues with cat heads and walls covered in hieroglyphs, similar to Egypt. The reason for this mix is that the producer of the game, Tomonobu Itagaki, refused to let anything constrain the creative process when building the world. This also means that you'll probably not become tired of running around in the world, since all locations are inherently different. And we haven't even talked about the gameplay yet, so let's do that now. The gameplay is made up of 4 main sections in my opinion: exploration and platforming, puzzle solving, combat and boss battles. While the game is fairly linear, you always search for secrets and collectibles which boost your abilities. One of these collectibles is golden scarabs, which are scattered around the world. In order to find them, you must utilize everything Ryu is able to do: running up walls, vaulting over pits, running across water, and there are 50 of them and some are well hidden, so if you don't have a keen eye and an imaginative mind, you may miss some. These can be traded in for weapons, items, magic and accessories at Muramasa's shop. Muramasa also offers other services, such as upgrading your weapons and selling various healing items and ammunition. As mentioned before, Ninja Gaiden also has some puzzles, some are very basic while others are a bit more difficult, but no puzzle is too hard, I feel like. But the combat, oh the combat. The combat is probably the best I've experienced in a game to date. Every animation and every combination feels great pulling off, and they are all pretty easy to do, so even if you don't have 6 skills, you can still feel like a badass. And if the enemies corner you and you're feeling out of luck, you can activate one of 4 powerful ninja spells called Ninpo. These are a great tool for damage or survival and can swing the game heavily in your favor. There are 10 weapons in the game, everything from massive great swords to agile and deadly nunchucks. These offer a great variety of moves for the player, so even if you don't like hacking away at enemies with swords, you can switch it up to a staff instead. And the enemies offer you no time to breathe or plan a strategy and will relentlessly attack you without mercy. That's what also makes you feel like a ninja. Dodging enemy attacks, countering and masterfully executing crazy moves, now that's what I'm talking about. Whenever you kill an enemy, they drop one of 3 possible orbs: Karma, Life or Ninpo use, which are yellow, blue and red respectively. Karma is the game's currency, Life replenishes your life, duh. And the Ninpo use reveals 1 circle of magic, works kinda like ammunition. Now if you don't want to pick these up, you can use them to quick charge ultimate moves that demolishes your enemies. The combat system is really great, and while it has a steep learning curve due to uncancelable moves, it's so satisfying when everything just clicks. Which leads me to another great thing Ninja Gaiden can offer you: great boss fights. You ever feel like bosses are too weak? Maybe they're not intimidating enough? Well, look no further, I present to you Ninja Gaiden bosses. They're tough, strong and deadly. They will kill you and you will like it. Okay, enough joking around. To be serious, there are some bosses that frustrate me to no end. But most of them have a fair moveset with clear windows of opportunity. My 2 favorite bosses in the game is Doku and Mirai. Who emerges victorious is simply dependent on skill. At least that's what it feels like. Though it is one thing that can absolutely make or break the combat: the camera. Sometimes it functions flawlessly and sometimes you're just unlucky. With the addition of the Sigma edition, you can now play as Rachel. Yeah, the base idea to play as other characters were utilized in Ninja Gaiden 2 and 3 to great effect, and it's not so bad. Rachel does have an okay moveset, and with another weapon or something, she could have been interesting. But compared to Ryu, she's way too clunky and hasn't been fleshed out enough. This really becomes a challenge when faced with the same fast and tough enemies as Ryu. Another interesting fact about Ninja Gaiden that most people don't know is that Team Ninja actually did motion capture for the game. But instead of importing it into the game like you usually do, they used the motion capture as templates when making enemies or movesets. But how does the game sound? As you may hear, the game has amazing sound throughout. The soundtrack is composed by Ryu Koike and Wakana Hara, and they must have sunk so many hours into each track, because they all fit in so well in every section and situation. And it shows, it's beautifully crafted. This is one of the few soundtracks that I can also listen to whenever. I cannot find any faults in the sound part of the game. Every slash, wall jump, explosion and ambient sound are spot on. Team Ninja pushed the game engine to its limits, which is easily noticeable by looking at the game's physics and animations. Everything is smooth and functions as one expects. This and oh so much more made the game amazing, even if measured by today's standards. But before we close out, the replayability must be mentioned. Playing the game on normal, hard, very hard and Master Ninja is fundamentally different and absolutely requires the player to adapt their playstyle and tactics to succeed. It gives you a completely different experience when playing through the game. You get weapons, magic and items at certain points in the game, depending on which difficulty you are playing. Different enemies is also placed in different locations to make you suffer as much as possible, but the challenge feels mostly fair. And that's the most important part when making a game hard. It should be hard, but fair. Ninja Gaiden is a game made out of love, and it reflects its greatness. This is one of my favorite games of all time, one which I replay every now and then. The mark of a truly brilliant game. Ninja Gaiden achieved something few games have. They perfected the art of the ninja.